upon Nigeria and Africa unite, and the anchor of Nigeria now. Global matters are rising. Good morning, Africa, and reggae at its best on ONN. This morning, we bring you updates on the Iran war. Okay, you're going to be hearing different accounts from our affiliates, and where necessary, we will make some comment. I hope you're ready to listen. And if you are joining us for the very first time, we welcome you heartily, and hope that you will leave here with something very positive. And we urge you to subscribe to our channel and hit the notification button so that when we come online for another great analysis, you'll be one of the very first to be contacted. We hope you have a pleasant moment, viewing this. So we're going to start right now with echoes coming from around the world on the issue of Iran, involving the United States and Israel. Happy viewing.
Over now to some breaking news in regards to the developing situation in the Middle East. Taking a look here, it's a social media post courtesy of the Associated Press. It says, breaking. Israel says that Iranian intelligence minister Ismail Khatib has been killed. This is what we know so far from the Associated Press. They say this, that Israel's defense minister, Israel Katz, made the announcement on Wednesday, so earlier today, and in fact, just a few minutes ago. The killing of Khatib follows the killings of top Iranian security officials Ali Laranjani and the head of the paramilitary Revolutionary Guard's all-volunteer besieged force. The defense minister of Israel, Katz, said that, quote, significant surprises are expected throughout this day on all the fronts. The U.S. Treasury, which sanctioned Khatib in 2022 over the intelligence ministry, quote, engaging in cyber-enabled activities against the United States and its allies, put his year of birth as either 1960 or 1961. It said that Khatib had been born in Iran's South province, and that Khatib, quote, directs several networks of cyber threat actors involved in cyber espionage and ransomware attacks in support of Iran's political goals. Again, that is according to the Treasury. The Treasury also called Iran's intelligence ministry in another round of sanctions one of the Iranian government's main security services, which is responsible for serious human rights abuses. So there's a lot to get to on this Wednesday. Continuing here and bringing onto the conversation now is going to be Jonathan Sayeh. He is an Iran program research analyst at the Foundation for the Defense of Democracies. Good morning, Jonathan.
Good morning. Great to be with you.
Thanks for joining. So this breaking news came down just a few minutes ago. I want you to just walk our viewers through this, the impact of this particular killing, and then we're going to talk about some other top Iranian officials that have been killed within the last 24 hours as well. But let's start with this one, the killing of the Iranian intelligence minister.
This is the most anticipated smart security camera of the year. No internet connection needed, no wiring or complicated installation.
It is certainly a very significant development. We have to look at this assassination, wave in different phases. So the initial steps were going after the main command structure, but primarily military personnel. That's what we saw in the first few days of the war up until this point. And now with the intel minister paired with a few other folks that we're going to get into in a bit more depth, we're realizing that Israel primarily is shifting its focus towards internal repression, actors that are preventing street protests to take place. So it seems like they're facilitating the way for Iran's protest and anti-regime movement to at least have a bit more of a leveled playing field between them and the Islamic Republic. But of course, there's a lot more to it. There's a lot more components. Definitely easier said than done. But that's it. That looks like where the Israeli division of labor has been focused on. While the U.S. has been taking out a lot of military assets, naval force sites, Israelis are more focused on the urban areas and targeted assassinations and the repression apparatus.
So you just mentioned there, and of course we are going to get to this topic of these other top Iranian officials. One of them here on the screen, the Israel Defense Forces. So Ali Laranjani, this came down as breaking news just yesterday. He was Iran's Supreme National Security Council and the regime's effective leader. He has been eliminated. Jonathan, let's just briefly speak on the impact of this particular death and really how that changes the scope of decision making right now within whoever is governing Iran.
You're right to cast a bit of ambiguity as to who is governing the Islamic Republic. The short answer might be no one, or a committee of a few people, but that in itself tells you that there's not one person manning it. I know we had talked about the son of the supreme leader. It's debatable if he's alive or even has the capacity to govern, if he's wounded or in a coma. But that said, that is part of the Islamic Republic's really agenda or strategy. It is meant to function despite leadership decapitation. They had a contingency plan. So if you're a mid-level official, a commander, let's say, of a certain brigade, or if you're a foot soldier carrying out day-to-day operations, you know where your tasks are, whether you have a supreme leader or a national security council or not. You know that you're supposed to regionalize the war, use the drones and missiles to attack civilian infrastructure, Israel and US bases. And once those stockpiles are depleted and those capabilities are removed after the US attacks, then you shift your focus internally, open fire on protesters, because ultimately the Iranian people are the real existential threat. As to who Larijani was, he, interestingly enough, did a little bit of both. So he was, of course, part of the architects that orchestrated the mass killing of Iranians in January. He was definitely a key actor that contributed to the death of about 40,000 unarmed protesters. On the other hand, he was also, as you noted, the secretary of the Supreme National Security Council. That means he was also a military official in his own capacity. He had close ties to Moscow as well, as another way of looking at it. So taking him out not only disrupts the command structure, but it also demoralizes the body of the regime's armed forces. Now they know that there is no way out for them. So I think it's a clear signal that the assassination wave is not done, and Israel and America are going to continue to go after present, future, and present, past, and future political leaders of the regime.
Before we go on to who else is possibly next in line when it comes to these specific targets, Jonathan, we don't get too many live images coming out of Iran. We do have one coming in at this moment. I want to take it briefly. This is courtesy of the Associated Press and has to do with Ali Larijani. So the AP saying this: it is the funeral being held for that top Iranian security official. What looks to be here, thousands of Iranians there taking to the streets, waving the flags, and they're, again, specifically for the funeral of Larijani. It brings me to this next point, because I want to talk about Iranians in general. This looks like a mixed feed here, possibly from the state-run news agency. But take a look at that. A lot of people there on the streets. Now, it was just, a couple of months ago that we were talking about a lot of these protesters that were there protesting against the Iranian regime, protesting against the way that the country was being run. They were being killed off for their protest. But then we're also getting these images of thousands of people there at a funeral service for one of the officials that has been killed. So what is the sentiment there on the ground in Iran? What kind of divide do we see from civilians that live there? Where do they stand amidst this conflict and really all of the developments that have happened since those initial strikes on February 28th?
At the University of Arizona, we have transformed Bear Down into a legacy.
I cannot think of any other country with this much of a gap and divide between the ruling entity and the people. The mindset on the ground, talking to folks, is that the country of Iran is occupied by foreign Islamist forces. That's the mentality, and that really tells you how the average Iranian sees these parades, sees these rallies. Well, number one, what you see get displayed on media affiliated with the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps is by no means evidently indicative of the Iranian sentiment. Most of these people that you see on display right now are part of the Basij militia, basically an underwing of the FTO, designated terror group of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. And having grown up in Tehran, I remember during any major event, they would actually bus in people from other parts of the country. So if, let's say, a funeral is held in Tehran, the people that you see, most of them actually not from that area. They're getting transported in because they know they don't have enough of a support base and they want to have a show of force from a PR perspective. So that's really important for us to keep in mind. What you see is certainly not indicative of what's happening on the ground here. But as to how Iranians think, listen, this is a situation that's less than ideal for anyone. No one wanted to see the conflict to escalate to this extent. But nonetheless, Iranians see this as a war that was imposed on them by the regime because Tehran failed to negotiate in good faith. They did not provide concessions, and they regionalized the war. They went after civilian infrastructure as their main target. Ultimately, Iranians see that. To them, there's no way out but through. This is not to say the average Iranian wants to have regime change at any cost. There are certainly pillars that might alienate the Iranian public. We're not there yet, at least. But that said, war fatigue does kick in after a while. But given how the operations have been carrying out recently, and given that Israelis are even going after hyper-local personnel targeting, it tells us that this war is about to enter a new phase rather quickly. Just you look at what's coming out of Jerusalem, the signs that are coming towards the Iranian people does indicate that the next chapter is upon us very, very swiftly.
Speaking a little bit more about some of the images that we are able to get from Iran, Jonathan, what is the status of that internet blackout and that communications blackout that we saw when these protests first started?
Interesting that you would compare this internet blackout to that of January, which is very notable. So right now, since this war started on February 28th, we've seen the longest internet blackout against the Iranians. That said, I'm comparing the footage coming out of the country right now versus when they did in January. Even though the January blackout was maybe about a week or so, we absolutely got no information coming from Iran. There were no videos being posted. I couldn't contact anybody on the ground during that wave. But right now is a bit different. We're getting information, we're getting videos, footage, images from Iranians on the ground corroborating some of the statements coming from CENTCOM and the IDF. That in itself tells you to an extent that there may have been some sort of contingency plan in place to somehow facilitate some way of communicating to Iranians from the outside world. This is not to say every person in Iran has access to internet. Certainly is a blockade. There's plenty of people I cannot reach, unfortunately, my loved ones, family members, and friends. That said, the flow of information is not really resembling that of January, which I think tells you that maybe there are more Starlinks into place, maybe more people have VPNs. But another interesting factor there is Israeli and US strikes have also struck buildings that are in charge of censorship. So they've also degraded the Islamic Republic's repression capabilities on the digital side as much as they've done the physical repression.
Let's go back to some of these top Iranian officials that have been killed. One more social media post here from the IDF. Again, this was breaking news that we brought just yesterday. So the commander of the besieged unit eliminated, the IDF targeted and eliminated Gholam Reza Soleimani. This brings me to my next point here. And as I mentioned at the top of this discussion, we've seen a lot of these leaders being taken out consistently, swiftly, but yet new targets still emerge. Every day we hear a new top Iranian official being killed. How many people are involved in running these military operations there in Iran that we have so many top officials, or so many people, I should say, that would be considered top Iranian officials?
It's fair to point out that there's frankly too many of them, and they replace one another rather swiftly. So the regime in Tehran was never a one-man show like Libya or Gaddafi. It was built on parallel institutions. The former supreme leader, Khamenei Sr., he had ensured that decapitation wouldn't be as effective against the Islamic Republic. So now, as you pointed out, there's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, then there's the Besieged, and then you have the intelligence apparatus that in itself is quite vast. Then you have the regular armed forces. On top of that, you have the political leadership that is both on the civilian and on the military political leadership. So again, yeah, you're right to point out that there's quite an extensive network of these guys. Another way of looking at it when it comes to strictly numbers, Iran has a population of 90 million. Estimates vary as to how many of them are supporters of the regime. It's anywhere from 10 to 30% of the population, which is still millions. So drawing from that, millions, and you narrowing it down, you still have quite a few people that could carry on the mantle of this regime. So that's important for us to point out. That said, looking at the way that Israel and the US have been eliminating some of these leaders, we yet to really pursue removing the political leadership. So in most of these cases, these individuals were somehow affiliated with the military or the intelligence apparatus. Both are very legitimate targets, of course. But when we see who's left, a lot of people that are affiliated with the reformist camp are still around. There are some signs suggesting that Jerusalem or Washington might be entertaining using someone from within the system, recycling some of these folks. Debatable how effective that would be, or debatable even whether the IRGC would allow that or not. But that said, the two people that you just mentioned, we talked about Larijani, but the Basij guy, Ghulam Reza Soleimani, what's really important about taking him out is that his job was strictly being the enforcer of internal security. So it comes down to him, his cadres that would harmonize and really coordinate the crackdowns against protesters. Again, we're seeing the pattern emerge here. Jerusalem and Washington think they've done enough of a job to degrade the military capabilities. We see them now
If you
shift
just
their
joining
focus to
us,
internal
please
stuff. So in the
subscribe
next
to
week
our
or two, I
channel
think we're
and
going to
help
see
us
some major
grow and
developments.
expand our mission,
I posed
bringing
this next
great
question
news
to
to
one of the
you
experts, one
every
of the
day.
journalists that we had
We
on
thank
yesterday,
all those
who's
who
following
have
us
joined
closely.
us. Please
We
don't leave
had
without
some reports
subscribing
possibly
and
there were
sharing
talks
our
on the table
message and
between maybe
liking. Give us
U.S.
a like for
officials,
the great
Iranian
job that we're doing
officials,
here.
to sit down, talk about what's happening here, and figure out a solution and how to go moving forward. Have you heard anything about that being a possibility? And also from the Iranian side, who would be representing them in any kind of talks, not even just with the U.S., but possibly other nations in the region, other Western countries? Who would be leading that effort?
Hey, I have a question for you. Do you live in Houston? Yes? Okay. Do you own a home? Yes? Okay. Do you need windows?
We talked about how the political leadership is still intact, and that includes the foreign minister who's been leading a lot of these initiatives. That said, he doesn't have any authority to speak on behalf of the regime as a whole. He needs to get instructions from someone, as you pointed out. So it comes down to who is really orchestrating this. And part of the reason I think that Tehran is really reluctant to pursue diplomacy meaningfully, at least, is because they haven't even had a moment to sit down and actually discuss what they would want out of negotiations. Do they want an end to the conflict, and what concessions are they going to provide? Do they think they hold any cards? So they really haven't had a chance to strategize and really assess the calculus as to what Washington might want, what Israel might want, whether Europeans even have a say in all this. That said, during peace times, they never negotiated in good faith. Under the Biden administration, and right before the 2022 Women Life Freedom Movement, they were heading somewhere, didn't really lead anywhere meaningfully. So no matter if you had maximum pressure, maximum appeasement, war, or Operation Midnight Hammer, we saw no behavior change. We did not see Tehran change its stance. So if anything, the more isolated they feel, the more paranoid they become. And to them, and this is the most important thing there, to the Islamic Republic, concession equals weakness. And the more fragile they become, the less likely they are to indicate any sign of compromise. That sends the wrong message to the body of their armed personnel. It demoralizes their population and support base both inside Iran and regionally. So right now, I just don't see what they would be negotiating over. Sometimes they just negotiate for the sake of negotiations, just to project an image that the situation is calm. That said, I doubt even Washington would take them on that offer, given that we've launched such an extensive wave against so many of these officials, and who knows if one of them is going to be next. So it doesn't really make sense right now for us to engage diplomatically with a regime that we're at war in, and we're eliminating their officials.
Just want to point out that this is a live look coming out of Beirut in Lebanon. We do not have a live look coming out of Tehran or any other city there in Iran, but obviously here in Beirut, it has been active for the past several days, Israel conducting operations. Jonathan, everything changes so swiftly, so quickly here, given this entire situation. If you had to make one final point to our viewers, especially as we look ahead to the next 12, 24 hours, in fact, what is something we should keep an eye out for?
We talked about how there's a new phase of them going after internal repression, but that also means going after the personnel. The Islamic Republic's armed apparatus, talking about all these different parallel institutions, you're still talking about tens of thousands, if not 100,000 or more of these personnel that are remaining. Let's say even a generous estimate of how many of them have been eliminated, about maybe 10,000, which is not that significant. So this is not to say the main body is done. I think what we're looking out for is any signs of defection, them disobeying orders. We've heard information coming out of the Mossad actually threatening these commanders, saying, if you do not join the movement, we will eliminate you and your immediate cadre of personnel. So I think the next few days, I'm looking at if Israel is going to be going after the hyperlocal targeting of squads and units more so, or if they're going to shift towards getting defections out of these guys, out of this personnel. I think any whistleblower information would be very critical. But again, I think this is the most sensitive phase of the war since February 28th.
Jonathan Sayeh, an Iran program research analyst at the Foundation for the Defense of Democracies. As always, we appreciate your time. Take care.
Thank you for having me.
Of course.
Yes. Good morning, viewers from the United States, Nigeria, across Africa, and around the world. My name is Smart Mado Ajaja, and the relay of this, the convener of Open Nigeria and Africa Unite, and the anchor of Nigeria Now. Good morning, Africa. Global Matters are rising, and Reggae at its best on ONN. And also, I am the CEO of ONN. I'm going to bring you some more on this unfolding situation in Iran and the war, how the people are reacting, and how the war is quickly changing dynamics. From bombardment, there is a high likelihood of a ground offensive that I believe is going to clean up the whole thing. So what is taking place essentially has been, you see, some internal action within the territory of Iran itself by intelligence agencies pointing out areas and who are targets that could be taken down so that street protests, by those who are stiffly opposed to the Jim Crow system in Iran will come out to the street and take over their country. I think that is what is taking place right now. The coordination is here. And efforts at opening the Strait of Hormuz is ongoing. And from what you heard, the NATO allies of the United States all failed, and you saw how Donald Trump tongue-lashed them. And so the effort now is directly resting on the shoulders of the United States and Israel. And to my viewers in Nigeria, Nigeria, who's north, the north of our country, very nasty north, driven by Islamic extremists. I hope you heard first time what is taking place inside Iran, and not what you are hearing from Facebook. The Iran war, the Iranians are winning on social media, where the reaction is taking place right inside the country. So you stupid Nigerians driven by ignorance, yes, ignorance, you don't understand what is taking place. Instead of you taking your time to listen, you are listening to some malams who cannot brush their teeth. Yes, malams who exploit you, malams who make you ignorant, make you uneducated. Yeah, just like the Ayatollahs have made Iranians idiots inside their country, repress them. They are repressing you, and you are out there on the streets of Nigeria in droves, even destroying parts of other people that you see, fellow Nigerians, black people like you, fellow Africans like you are killing them, you are fighting them over the United States bombardment of Iran. Iran is not an African country, but it has become your problem. You are the ones killing fellow Nigerians. Idiots you are. I hope you are listening. This is the real news that you should be listening. So if you have brain, tune into ONN. We bring you the real raw news, not what Mustafa Gambo, yes, a young, stupid Islamist, is feeding you. You Hausa people in Nigeria, you see what is taking place now. For 222 years, they have used the Fulani brand of Islamic extremism to hold you captive in a country that you own. You are a whopping majority in the north of Nigeria, but they reduce you to dust. It's time for you to rise up now. And we thank President Donald Trump for what he's doing in Nigeria, but we need some more action. We need something similar to what is taking place in Iran, inside Nigeria, to end the stalemate, to end the madness that is going on in Nigeria. Because as it stands, Nigeria has no armed forces. The military has been destroyed. And the elements from this corrupt and morally bankrupt Iranian regime have their fingers in Nigeria, arming terrorist groups to destabilize our country. So it serves them right. What is the so it's the real people of Nigeria should be actually rooting for the United States and for what it has been doing. Look at the rest of the world, how they kept quiet. United Nations, we don't hear that, we don't see anything. That bastard United Nations, that African countries, 54 of them, you form the major group, but nobody cares about you. And you keep going there every September to tell stories of wars. Isn't it time you stopped and go back and really build an African Union? Yes, this is what we need right now. So I'm going to bring you another segment of another account from top news for democracy now, coming from Amy Goldman. I hope you're ready to get that happening. Stay tuned.
To Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. Israel says it's killed Iran's intelligence minister, Ismail Hatib, in a strike overnight in Tehran. It's the latest assassination of Iran's senior leadership. This comes as Iran is set to hold funerals today for its security chief, Ali Larijani, and Basij commander Gholamreza Soleimani, both of whom were also killed in an Israeli strike on Tuesday. Iran vowed revenge and launched retaliatory strikes against Israel. 2 people were killed near Tel Aviv by an Iranian missile strike, Israeli emergency responders said earlier today. On Tuesday, the U.S. dropped 5,000-pound bunker buster bombs along Iran's coast near the Strait of Hormuz to target Iran's anti-ship cruise missiles. It comes as Joe Kent, the director of the U.S. National Counterterrorism Center, resigned Tuesday over the U.S.-Israeli war on Iran. In a letter to President Trump posted on X, Kent wrote, quote, "Iran posed no imminent threat to our nation, and it's clear that we started this war due to pressure from Israel and its powerful American lobby," unquote. Kent is the first senior official to openly break with the White House over the war on Iran. He's a longtime Trump supporter who unsuccessfully ran for Congress twice. During his 2022 election bid, Kent hired a member of the far-right Proud Boys as a consultant. Meanwhile, top intelligence officials are expected to testify before the Senate Intelligence Committee later today. It comes as senior Israeli officials have told U.S. diplomats Iranian protesters will, quote, get slaughtered, unquote, if they demonstrate against their government, even as Israel has been promoting anti-regime protests. That's according to a State Department cable reviewed by the Washington Post. Iran's Ministry of Health says at least 1,444 people have been killed and nearly 19,000 injured in U.S.-Israeli attacks on Iran since February 28th. This is a worker with the Iranian Red Crescent.
During the operations of the imposed war from the U.S. and Israel against my country, the Islamic State of Iran, we have seen many heartbreaking scenes. Unfortunately, we have witnessed killing and injuring many of our civilian citizens that happened during the attacks to residential places at night or during other times and created tragic scenes.
Iran continues to launch retaliatory strikes against its neighbors in the region. In Iraq, Iranian rocket attacks have targeted the U.S. Embassy in Baghdad, and a drone sparked a fire at a luxury hotel in Baghdad's heavily fortified green zone. In the UAE, an Iranian projectile landed near a military base that hosts Australian troops. Several Gulf nations, including Kuwait, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, and the United Arab Emirates, said they're continuing to intercept Iranian missiles and drones. On Monday, Iran launched almost 100 drones at Saudi Arabia, according to the Saudi Defense Ministry. Israel launched airstrikes on central Beirut earlier today, demolishing a residential high-rise building. The Israeli military issued an evacuation warning for the building in central Beirut, saying it was a facility used by Hezbollah. Meanwhile, in southern Lebanon, Israeli troops have been conducting ground operations, ordering the evacuation of several villages. According to the Lebanese Public Health Ministry, at least 912 people, including 111 children, have been killed and 2,221 people have been wounded in Lebanon's assault on Israel's assault on Lebanon. The Norwegian Refugee Council said 1 million people, about a sixth of Lebanon's population, have been displaced. This is Tamin Al-Khitan, a spokesperson for the UN Commissioner for Human Rights.
In many instances, Israeli airstrikes have destroyed entire residential buildings in dense urban environments with multiple members of the same family, including women and children, often killed together. Such attacks raise concerns under international humanitarian law.
Iran's parliament speaker, Mohammad Ghalibaf, issued a stark warning about the Strait of Hormuz, saying in a post on X that the strait, quote, won't return to its pre-war status, unquote. This comes as President Trump blasted NATO members as they informed the U.S. they will not get involved in Trump's coalition to reopen the strait. In a post on X, President Trump wrote, quote, I'm not surprised by their action, however, because I always considered NATO, where we spend hundreds of billions of dollars per year protecting these same countries, to be a one-way street. We'll protect them, but they will do nothing for us in particular in a time of need, Trump said.
Yeah, that was NATO.
This is French President Emmanuel Macron.
Nous ne sommes pas partie prenante au conflit. Et donc, jamais la France ne...
We are not party to the conflict, and therefore France will never take part in operations to open or liberate the Strait of Hormuz in the current context.
Gas prices in the U.S. continue to increase as Iran has effectively blocked the Strait of Hormuz, which sees the passage of about 20% of the world's oil supply. According to AAA, the national average price for gas reached $3.84 a gallon Wednesday, rising 5 cents a day. Overall, gas prices have jumped 29% since the war began. This comes as the UN warns 45 million people around the world are at risk of acute hunger due to rising food prices sparked by the U.S.-Israeli war in Iran. Here in the United States, Attorney General Pam Bondi and her deputy, Todd Blanche, are set to testify before the House Oversight Committee on the Justice Department's handling of the Epstein files later today. Committee Chair James Comer subpoenaed Bondi yesterday, writing in a letter, quote, as Attorney General, you are directly responsible for overseeing the department's collection, review, and determinations regarding the release of files pursuant to the Epstein Files Transparency Act, and the committee therefore believes that you possess valuable insight into these efforts, Comer wrote. Meanwhile, a New York Times review of thousands of pages of Justice Department documents found the late convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein spent heavily on a rotating team of search engine optimization experts, self-described hackers, and content writers to reshape how Epstein appeared on Google and Wikipedia after his 2008 sex crimes conviction. Senate Democrats late Tuesday sent the White House a new counteroffer to fund the Department of Homeland Security, which has been under a partial shutdown for more than a month. The Trump administration has so far ignored demands from Democrats, such as requiring officers to obtain a judicial warrant to enter private homes and to address the excessive use of force by immigration agents. Earlier Tuesday, the administration signaled it's open to enforcing, quote, the use of visible officer identification, though Trump officials have not conceded to prohibiting officers from wearing face coverings. This comes as Trump's Homeland Security Secretary nominee, Republican Senator Markwayne Mullin, is set to appear before a Senate committee today as his confirmation process begins. Trump appointed Mullin to replace Kristi Noem, who was fired from the position as head of Department of Homeland Security earlier this month. Several immigrants from El Salvador who were deported by the Trump administration last year have been disappeared and subjected to arbitrary detention in their home country. That's according to a new report by Human Rights Watch, which said at least 11 deported Salvadorans have languished in detention for months since being deported from the United States to El Salvador. They have not been allowed to communicate with their families or provided due process. Some of them were deported last March, along with dozens of Venezuelans, and sent to the troubled Secat mega prison in El Salvador, where there are mounting reports of torture, including sexual violence. A federal judge has temporarily blocked the Trump administration from terminating temporary protected status, that's TPS, for immigrants from Somalia. The judge's emergency order came as the relief was slated to end yesterday. The Council on American Islamic Relations, CARE's Minnesota chapter, said in a statement, quote, "This decision brings a critical moment of relief for Somali families across Minnesota and the country who've been living under the weight of uncertainty," unquote. Minnesota is home to one of the largest Somali populations in the United States. The Trump administration is considering withholding HIV treatment, tuberculosis, and malaria medications from Zambia in order to force the country to open its mines to U.S. companies. That's according to a leaked State Department memo obtained by the New York Times. The memo says, quote, "We will only secure our priorities by demonstrating willingness to publicly take support away from Zambia on a massive scale," unquote. The proposed deal would offer Zambia $1 billion in health funding over 5 years, which is less than half of what the country received before President Trump took office. In return, Zambia would need to grant U.S. companies access to its copper, cobalt, and lithium reserves and agree to restructure a nearly $500 million agricultural grant to require regulatory changes in its mining sector. About 1.3 million people in Zambia rely on daily HIV treatment provided through U.S. aid programs. Cuba's restored power after a 29-hour island-wide blackout left millions of people without electricity. Cuban energy officials said they'd reconnected the national power grid that had completely collapsed Monday. But blackouts are expected to continue. A U.S. energy blockade has cut off Cuba from accessing desperately needed fuel as the Trump administration intensifies its pressure to topple the Cuban government. The Justice Department's dismissed charges against an Army veteran who set a U.S. flag on fire across the street from the White House last year. The protest held by John J. Kerry came in response to a Trump executive order that mandated federal agencies to vigorously prosecute anyone who burns the U.S. flag. Kerry was not charged with flag burning, but faced 2 misdemeanors, including for igniting a fire in an undesignated area. A 1989 Supreme Court ruling determined the burning of a U.S. flag as protected speech under the First Amendment. A federal judge in Rhode Island ordered the Trump administration to restore a union contract with 320,000 Veterans Affairs Department workers. This comes after Doug Collins, the VA secretary, canceled the union agreement back in August. U.S. District Judge Melissa DuBose agreed with the American Federation of Government Employees that the VA canceled its bargaining agreement as retaliation for the union's opposition to the Trump administration's labor policies. Everett Kelly, the president of the American Federation of Government Employees, said the ruling, quote, holds this administration accountable and makes clear no one can retaliate against workers for standing up for their rights, unquote. And in Illinois, Lieutenant Governor Juliana Stratton won Tuesday's Democratic Senate primary in a race to succeed Senator Dick Durbin, who's retiring. Al Jazeera and The Intercept reported dozens of donor groups aligned with the American Israel Public Affairs Committee, known as AIPAC, gave money to Stratton's campaign. If elected in November, Stratton could become the 6th Black woman to serve in the Senate in U.S. history. Meanwhile, Evanston Mayor Daniel Biss won the Democratic primary in a closely watched race for a U.S. House seat that's not been vacant for nearly 3 decades. More than a dozen Democrats ran to succeed the retiring Congressmember John Schakowsky, who's been in office since 1999. Progressive candidate Kat Ubagazala finished second. Groups linked to AIPAC spent millions of dollars attacking both her and Biss. And those are some of the headlines. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. Thanks for watching Democracy Now! On YouTube. Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications to make sure you never miss a video. And for more of our audience-supported journalism, go to democracynow.org, where you can download our news app, sign up for our newsletter, subscribe to the daily podcast, and so much more.
All right. You heard it. So I'm going to take some questions, but before we get to that, I'm going to show you one more thing. Today is supposed to be the Persian New Year. And in that new year, there are expectations from the leaders of the country, or the highest ranking leader of the country, that's the head of state or the Ayatollah. He usually makes a speech. But in this year's celebration, no speech, no statement, no nothing, total blackout. And that signifies that something is seriously wrong somewhere inside Iran going forward, contrary to what we are fed daily and actually every minute on the social media. So I'm going to run you through a report right now before we come back and finalize. Again, if you are visiting us for the very first time, we welcome you from our heart. ONN is a global movement for peace, security, and justice. Yes, I am from Nigeria. I live here in the United States. I've lived here for 30 years, and I love this country for the opportunity it has provided me to expand my horizon and to be able to do what I'm doing. And we have a problem, maybe something even more dangerous than what it is. They are battling in Iran. Yeah, we have a lot of problems in Nigeria. One, my country, Nigeria, is now led by a criminal. Actually, criminals have taken over the country. Criminals have taken over the country at all levels and in all sectors. The president of the country is a drug dealer. He was a drug dealer here, commercial drug dealer. Bola Ahmed Tinubu, commercial drug dealer. He operated between Illinois and Indiana, and most specifically, Gary, Indiana, where Michael Jackson was born. Yeah, he was one of the architects who destroyed that city, turned it into a drug-infested city, and that city will never be the same. Destroyed so many American lives and families. Yes, he was arrested, prosecuted here. Somehow he settled, and he paid America nearly $500,000 US, and he was allowed to go home instead of being slammed behind bars as other criminals are done. Now he left here and went to Nigeria, became a senator. From being a senator, he became a governor of the richest state, Lagos State in Nigeria, here for 8 years. And during these 8 years, he took over at least 1/4 of the resources in the state belongs to him. He amassed so much money with which he preemptively bought every institution in Nigeria on his way to the presidency of Nigeria, which he took illegally and illegitimately in 2023, and slammed the country in the worst hell ever recorded in its history. The country's economy is laying prostrate. Terrorists have taken over one half of the country. Yes, just 2 days ago, 50 soldiers were massacred. Yes, responded to. And just yesterday, a hospital, university teaching hospital in Maiduguri, was bombed. Yes, patients and family members destroyed. And it is raging everywhere. And you see what happened that led the United States to declare Nigeria a country of a particular concern. And so much is unfolding. Remember, on the 25th of December, the United States had to deploy a bomb to bomb a terrorist stronghold in Sokoto State. But that is not enough. Nigeria need, actually, what is happening in Iran right now. We need a regime change in Nigeria. They have made the people so poor and so weak and vulnerable, they can't even rise up. As I stand right here, I am officially on exile, even though I live here. I can't venture into Nigeria right now, not because of fear of going there, but for the fear of losing this voice. Because my voice is helping a lot of Nigerians out there to know that they are not alone, that there are some people speaking and putting pressure on the United States to take action on Nigeria. And we'll continue to take that action. We'll continue to press until a definite action is taken, because that country is about to be completely destabilized. And then we will see a worse form of Somalia in Africa that can actually destabilize the entire African continent. That is the fear we have. Terrorists have taken over. But before, I'm going to take some questions. I know some people lined up some questions for me to answer. I'm going to answer all of them, but I'm going to, take you through this Iranian New Year that a report is sitting by there for you to watch. So take a listen.
It is one of the most important rituals of the Islamic Republic, a speech. Every year for the past 47 years, on the first day of the Persian New Year, the supreme leader of Iran delivers a message to his nation. It is one of the most important rituals of the Islamic Republic, a speech, a vision, a statement that says, we are here, we are in charge, and this country continues. Today is Nowruz, the Persian New Year, the moment when 90 million Iranians welcome spring and begin again, and Iran's supreme leader has sent no message. No speech, no video, no audio, not even a written statement read by a news anchor. On the most important day in the Iranian calendar, the man who is supposed to lead the Islamic Republic into its new year is completely silent. And while that silence hangs over Tehran, a man in Washington whose father was the last Shah of Iran posted a message that every Iranian inside the country and across the entire diaspora is reading right now. Reza Pahlavi wrote, "Dear compatriots, we are now at the decisive stage of our final struggle. In the coming days, we will create the conditions for you to grasp your destiny. Be ready to seize the moment. Be ready to seize the moment. We are on day 19. Nowruz has arrived. The bombs are still falling. The supreme leader is silent. And for the first time in 47 years, the Islamic Republic faces a Persian New Year with no leader to speak and no answer to the question every Iranian is asking tonight. What comes next? Let me take you through everything. And right now, before I go any further, I want to hear from you in the comments. Type A if you think tonight's Nowruz celebrations could turn into the uprising that ends the Islamic Republic. Type B if you think the IRGC is strong enough to suppress anything that happens in the streets. I want your answer before I continue. Start with what Nowruz actually is, because most people watching this from outside Iran may not fully understand why today matters so far beyond the calendar. Nowruz is not just a holiday. It is the oldest continuously celebrated festival on Earth, observed for at least 3,000 years. It predates Islam by more than a millennium. It predates the Islamic Republic by 3,000 years. When Iranians celebrate Nowruz, they are connecting to something that no revolution, no regime, and no bombing campaign has ever been able to extinguish. Nowruz, meaning New Day, will ring in the year 1405 on the Persian calendar, and the arrival of spring. The festival is rooted in Zoroastrianism, a religion practiced in ancient Persia that predates Christianity and Islam. For the Islamic Republic, Nowruz has always been complicated. For Iran's ruling mullahs, festivals such as Chaharshan Basuri and Nowruz have always been complicated, as their ancient Persian roots stand in conflict with the Islamic Republic's stance to define the country's religion, primarily through revolutionary Shia ideology. The traditions, however, have endured and have become personal expressions of ancient Iranian identity that allow the population a small token of rebellion, a token of rebellion. That phrase matters more this year than it ever has before, because this year Nowruz has arrived under circumstances unlike anything in living memory. Beneath a hail of bombs, few Iranians have the heart to prepare for Nowruz, the Persian New Year, as war casts a shadow across the country. A resident of the northern city of Bukhan said people just are not thinking about it. A mother said, "It is the first time in my life that I have forgotten how to grow sabzeh," referring to the sprouted lentils grown for Nowruz. Many shops and markets remained shut 2 weeks after the war was launched. In Piranshar, the lively, energetic mood of past years has disappeared. A cousin has a clothing shop, but has not been able to open because it is in a city where there are many explosions. Even so, many families are trying to find some joy for their children, for whom Nowruz is also a holiday of gifts and treats. A 6-year-old boy has no real sense of the war. All he wants are new clothes, sweets, and traditional cakes for Nowruz. People try to buy chocolates and snacks for their kids. They want to reassure them. A 6-year-old boy who wants sweets. A mother who forgot to grow her lentils for the first time in her life. These are the human beings inside the country that has been at war for 19 days. These are the people behind the death tolls and the missile counts and the oil prices. This is what the third week of this war looks like from inside an Iranian home on Persian New Year. Now, Chaharshan Basuri, because it happened 2 days ago, and what happened in the streets tells you something important about what tonight and the days ahead may look like. Wednesday was the last day in the Iranian calendar, and Iranians have for thousands of years marked it with Chaharshan Basuri, a festival of fire and celebration to symbolize the triumph of light over darkness and welcome Nowruz. Iranian authorities were organizing street-level events across the country over the coming days to maintain security control and send messages of defiance to the leaders of the United States and Israel. The government organized its own events, state-controlled celebrations, rallies where Iranians were expected to burn effigies of Trump and Netanyahu. The Islamic Republic trying to use an ancient Persian fire festival as a demonstration of regime strength. Last year, during the fire festival of Chaharshan Basuri, young Iranians turned a traditional celebration into a political statement. Fires burned across the country as young men and women jumped over the flames, chanting Reza Shah, Rohat Shad, in praise of the founder of the Pahlavi dynasty, who sidelined the clerical class that now dominates Iran. Many of the participants were unveiled women, openly defying the regime's strict hijab laws. Last year, this happened during peacetime. This year, the Basiji commander is dead, the security chief is dead, the supreme leader is silent and possibly wounded in Moscow. And on 15th of March, residents of the Sadat Abad neighborhood of Tehran chanted numerous anti-government slogans, including "Long live the Shah," "Death to the IRGC and Basij," and "Death to the Islamic Republic," 3 days before Nowruz in Tehran. People chanting "Death to the IRGC" while the IRGC's top commanders are being killed by Israeli airstrikes. Now, Reza Pahlavi, because his statements this week are unlike anything he has said in 40 years of exile, and they need to be understood in their full context. In the days leading up to Nowruz, exiled Crown Prince Reza Pahlavi told Iranians that the country may be approaching a decisive moment. Dear compatriots, we are now at the decisive stage of our final struggle, he wrote in a message posted on March 11th. In a recent interview, Pahlavi said he might celebrate Nowruz in Tehran this year, a comment suggesting he may be directly seeking a political role in Iran's future. He might celebrate Nowruz in Tehran this year. This is the son of the last Shah of Iran, a man who has lived in exile for 47 years, saying he might go home for New Year. On Saturday, Pahlavi addressed what he called the Immortal Guard, small opposition cells operating inside Iran. I told you that help was on the way, he wrote. Now that help has arrived. Pahlavi urged Iranians to continue weakening the regime's security apparatus, which he said was now under heavy blows from the sky. This is not a call for street demonstrations, he wrote. It is a call to you to deliver intelligent and effective blows against the exhausted and worn down oppressors so that the path for the millions of the Iranian nation to flood the streets is further cleared. I eagerly await the day when I will stand beside you in the first liberated city of Iran. The first liberated city of Iran. That is the language of someone who believes regime change is not a distant possibility. It is a language of someone who believes it is happening right now. Slogans at diaspora rallies worldwide included free political prisoners, long live the king, death to Khamenei, King Reza Pahlavi, and this is the final battle, Pahlavi will return. Over 250,000 attended the 14 February rally in Munich, making it the largest ever Iran-focused demonstration in European history. The Toronto and Los Angeles rallies each drew 350,000 in attendance. 350,000 people in Los Angeles, 350,000 in Toronto, 250,000 in Munich. These are not fringe gatherings. These are mass mobilizations of the Iranian diaspora on a scale that has never happened before. Now, the critical question that every analyst, every government, and every Iranian family is asking tonight, will Nowruz become the uprising? If Chaharshanbe Suri or Nowruz gatherings evolve into protests, external war could coincide with an internal political crisis. Pressure on security forces would rise, and opposition figures could attempt larger political roles. Such developments would depend heavily on the regime's security apparatus strength, especially if authorities impose a complete crackdown. The regime's security apparatus strength. That is the variable everything hinges on. And here is where the deaths of the last few weeks become directly relevant to what happens in Iranian streets tonight. The Basij commander who ran the crackdown that killed tens of thousands of protesters in January is dead. The security chief who designed that crackdown is dead. The supreme leader who ordered the crackdown is dead. His replacement has not been seen or heard from since taking power.
Probably dead.
On 28th February, the first day of the Israeli and United States strikes on Iran, Iranians chanted death to Khamenei from the windows of their homes in continued protests. Female students at a school in Tehran chanted death to the Vilayat. Many Iranians inside Iran celebrated and rejoiced in the joint American-Israeli strikes on Iran. As Iranians began pouring out into the streets in celebration, the internet blackout was renewed and special forces were deployed in the streets to prevent an uprising. Footage also showed security forces opening fire on celebrants in the streets. On the very first day of the war, Iranians poured into the streets to celebrate. Security forces fired on them. The internet went dark, and they were pushed back inside. That was day 1. Today is day 19. The security commanders who gave the order to fire are dead. The internet is still dark, but satellite services are reaching through. And tonight is Nowruz. Crown Prince Reza Pahlavi, who has evolved from a symbolic figure of exile into something closer to an active opposition leader, recently referenced on social media what he called the Immortal Guards, essentially sleeper cells, small, unconnected groups scattered across Iran, loyal to the opposition and waiting for the right moment. The million-dollar question is whether that moment will come. Will the conditions align? Enough of the regime's infrastructure degraded? Enough fear removed from the streets for 90 million people to do what scattered protests have attempted and failed to accomplish for decades? Enough fear removed from the streets. That is the key phrase. The Islamic Republic has maintained power for 47 years primarily through fear. Fear of arrest, fear of torture, fear of execution, fear of what happened to the tens of thousands who died in January. The number of protesters killed in the crackdown on the 2026 Iranian protests remains uncertain. Internal estimates from Iran's Ministry of Health indicated at least 30,000 people were killed in the first 48 hours of the January crackdown. 30,000 people killed in 48 hours. That is what the Islamic Republic was willing to do in January to stay in power. The question tonight is whether it still has the capacity and the command structure to do it again. With Larijani dead, with the Basij commander dead, with Mojtaba Khamenei silent, and possibly not in the country. Now, what Trump said about all of this, because the president's words about the Iranian people on Nowruz are part of the story. Trump said he can fully understand why Iranian citizens have not risen up to overthrow the regime, noting authorities threatened to shoot protesters. He understands why they have not risen up. He has seen the intelligence about what happened in January. He knows what the IRGC did to the people in the streets. And yet the entire logic of this war from the American side is that eventually the Iranian people will finish the job that the bombs cannot complete. Trump said aboard Air Force One that Iran is eager to negotiate, but not yet prepared to reach a deal to end the war. They are very eager to negotiate, as they should be. We are talking to them, but I do not believe they are ready yet, he said. Eager to negotiate, but not ready yet. Iran is making secret contact with the CIA while publicly saying there will be no ceasefire. Trump is saying they want to talk, but the terms are not good enough. And meanwhile, the bombs fall on a country celebrating its new year with no leader to speak. Despite the war, Iran mobilized domestic support, calling for nationwide rallies to counter enemy plots during Nowruz celebrations. Iranian missiles have killed at least 12 people in Israel so far. The barrage underscores Tehran's ability to conduct long-range strikes even after weeks of sustained U.S. and Israeli attacks. The regime is trying to organize its own Nowruz rallies, state-controlled celebrations designed to show the world that Iran is united behind its government. The government that has no visible leader, the government whose security commander is dead, the government that the people in the streets of Tehran's Saadatabad neighborhood were chanting death to 3 days ago. Now, the context that most coverage is missing about why this Nowruz is historically unprecedented, because the full picture requires understanding what was happening in Iran before the war even started. The protests began in Tehran on December 28, 2025, and continued through mid-January 2026. The protests took place after a year of economic freefall, including a sharp devaluation of the rial since the 12-day conflict with Israel in June 2025. The Iranian government increased security spending by nearly 150%, while offering wage increases amounting to only about 2/5 of the rate of inflation. On January 9th, the crackdown left thousands of protesters dead, making it the deadliest incident of repression since the Islamic Republic took power in 1979. The killings took place during the 8th and 9th of January and were largely perpetrated by the IRGC and Basiji militia. The mass killings were planned and conducted in an organized manner and based on information obtained from the Supreme National Security Council and the Presidential Office. It was ordered by Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei himself. Ali Khamenei ordered the killing of tens of thousands of his own citizens in January. Then on February 28th, he was killed by a U.S.-Israeli strike. The man who ordered that massacre is dead. The man who planned it, Larijani, is dead. The man who carried it out through the Basij, Soleimani, is dead. The people who survived the January massacre are still alive. They are in Iran right now, and tonight is Nowruz. After Mojtaba Khamenei was named the new supreme leader on 8th of March, chants of death to Mojtaba were heard from the windows of homes. On 14th March, people chanted, "Long live the Shah," in the Chitgar neighborhood of Tehran, from windows, under internet blackout, under the threat of being shot in the streets, and still chanting. Let me put it all together and tell you exactly what this Nowruz means and what it may determine. Iran's supreme leader has delivered no Nowruz message. If no Nowruz message appears from Iran's supreme leader on the first day of the Persian New Year, it would signal significant shifts within Tehran's power structure. The silence is the message. Mojtaba Khamenei, wounded and possibly in Moscow, has no Nowruz message to deliver. Because delivering a message means appearing on video or audio. And appearing means giving the United States and Israel a location. And giving them a location means what happened to his father could happen to him. So on the most important day of the Persian calendar, the Islamic Republic is voiceless. Its supreme leader is silent. Its security chief is dead. Its Basij commander is dead. And Reza Pahlavi is telling 90 million Iranians to be ready to seize the moment. For most Iranians this week, Nowruz will remain a time for family gatherings and the rituals marking the start of a new year. Yet the holiday arrives amid open talk of decisive days ahead. Perhaps nothing dramatic will happen. Perhaps it is all speculation. But talk of the decisive stage of our final struggle and sentences, such as in the coming days, we will create the conditions for you to grasp your destiny. Be ready to seize the moment, leave one with bated breath. As Iranian families gather around their Haft-seen tables to mark the new year, perhaps they will also welcome freedom. Perhaps nothing dramatic will happen. Or perhaps tonight around bonfires across a country that has been under bombardment for 19 days, with no leader to speak on their most sacred holiday, with the men who killed their family members in January now dead themselves, perhaps the millions of Iranians who have been chanting from their windows will step outside. Nobody knows what tonight brings. That is the honest answer. But what we know is this: every single structural condition that would need to exist for a popular uprising to succeed is either already in place or closer to being in place than at any moment in 47 years of the Islamic Republic. The commander of the massacre is dead. The architect of the crackdown is dead. The supreme leader who ordered it is dead. His replacement cannot speak. The security apparatus is degraded. The missiles have been falling on military targets for 19 days. And outside Iran, from Munich to Los Angeles to Toronto, 350,000 people at a time are gathered saying, this is the final battle. Nowruz 1405 has arrived. The new day is here. Whether it is also Iran's new beginning, we will know very soon. Before I go, I need to hear from you. A, the supreme leader sent no Nowruz message for the first time in Islamic Republic history. Do you think Mojtaba Khamenei is in Moscow, in hiding inside Iran, or already dead? B, Reza Pahlavi says, be ready to seize the moment. Do you think he returns to Iran before this war ends and actually takes power? C, Nowruz is here. The bombs are falling. The leaders are dead or silent. Do you believe tonight is the night Iranians finally flood the streets for the last time? Drop A, B, or C right now. This is the most important conversation happening on YouTube today. I read every single comment and your answers shape tomorrow's coverage. Subscribe and hit the notification bell. What happens in the streets of Tehran tonight may be the most consequential moment of this entire war. We are only on day 19, but Nowruz only comes once a year, and this one may never be forgotten. Welcome.
All right. It's a pleasure, having you guys stick around for as long as this program lasted. So I'm going to take a few of the questions that were sent here and address. I hope those who sent those questions are still here. All right, from Bullet Man, you said NATO is weak. Yes, weak. Wait until they need help. Definitely, absolutely. NATO, from NATO, what makes NATO strong is the United States. When the United States withdraws its support for NATO, NATO is finished. Yes, so that's the thing. And they will play cocky, especially that France, the Achilles heel of the troubles in Africa. They are so sneaky. Yeah, that little boy, they call Macron. Yeah, I heard, you heard his speech. It's crazy. So, well, the United States has all it takes to do whatever is necessary to get things cracking. So we trust that the U.S. will do a good job, as always. I love this country. I love this country for the opportunity it gave me, much more than where I was born. Yes, I had to struggle to get everything. You have to pay someone to get ahead. You must have to bribe someone. But since I came here, I never offered anybody any bribe. If you are good, you are good. You are qualified, you are qualified. And that is why I am fighting, to see that model, brought to Africa, to Nigeria specifically, where I was born 63 years ago. So it's a pleasure here. And for those who subscribe to our channel, we can't thank you enough. You have added fuel to our work, and you help expand our horizon. I call on all those who have not subscribed to do so before we end this program, and also to invite you to join our membership. You know, it helps us advance our cause, expand our horizon. You can also support us via sending us super thanks and super chats and gifts. You know, that helps us to keep this channel going. You know, it's a lot of work that is required, and we do a lot of charity work in Nigeria and across Africa too, and want to expand our reach, you know, beyond the borders of Nigeria and the African continent. So do support us however you can, you know, by sharing our message, liking and commenting, because that inspires YouTube to recommend our channels to other people. And someone said that I am so intelligent. Well, thank you very much. It's an inspiration. Inspiration come to man, you know, and I was raised in an environment where I could express myself. So I'm so delighted. I'm so happy. Okay, that's a bullet. I said this man is highly intelligent. Thank you very much. I'm very, very humbled, and I'm so happy. Thank you very much for that. You know, that inspires me a lot. And some more questions. Someone said on point here, maybe some of the things that I said. Free Palestine. Yeah, absolutely. I want Palestine to be free, and Palestine to exist side by side as a state with Israel in a manner that there will be no rancor. We are tired of this age-long war that has consumed a lot of people and exposed young children and women to untimely death. So we are hoping that this ongoing effort will eventually bring peace between Palestine and the state of Israel, and in the entire Gulf region, and the whole world over. We don't want a war. You know, war never brings anything good, you know, so we can live in peace, you know, and we have a lot of problems to address in the world, global warming, that we are not doing enough to address, so that we preserve this beautiful edifice called Earth that the Almighty God put us into. This is where the heaven is actually. That is the heaven we are sure of, until we see the other one that they are talking about. You have to die to get to that place. But here is the heaven that we must make look good, you know, so everything will go around for everybody. All right, it can be done. It can be done. It can be done. Okay, it said now, C-Dub, who would NATO need help against? Maybe NATO will need help against Russia, because that's always the threat that they hold. That this threat, Russia and North Korea, I bet that's I'm just guessing, but it's most probably going to be the answer, the threat that they face. Yeah, NATO has never been a good organization. I really don't, you know, quite like it. Like it's a mob, you know, that will jump on people, jump on weak countries. So United States, truly, I know when Donald Trump first came, he talked about the need for the U.S. to leave NATO. But for some reason, he hasn't done that. And I'm not sure that is going to happen in the first place. And the same thing we hoped about the democratization of the United Nations. Because you cannot call it a United Nations. 5 countries make rules for the whole of the world. It is unfair and it's undemocratic. And it should be, that organization should be an exemplary organization that will help foster democracy in the world. All right, so that's that. And what else? Is there any other question for me here? I don't see any. And in the absence of any we don't need no more war. Yeah, that's what Peter McIntosh said. We don't need no more war. Let's see. All right, let's see what this person is saying. I can't exactly read everything. Shepherd something. All right, he said Marine taught Bible over 60 years. Shepherd's Chapel, YouTube explains the whole Bible. God bless. All right, God bless you. We'll check you out. Yes, so, and thank you very much for being part of this program, and hopefully same time, same person, same channel. Hopefully tomorrow we will come back here, but we have 4 major programs, and our programs are: 1, Nigeria Now, which we host every Saturday at 10 a.m. Central Standard Time, which is 4 p.m. Nigerian time, and whatever time it is elsewhere in the world. Yeah, we use that to talk about Nigeria. Nigeria Now at ONN. And then Global Matters Are Rising is for the whole world, like what we're doing today. And we talk about stories coming from around the world, analysis, news analysis, and breaking news from around the world. That's for Global Matters Arising. Good morning, Africa. We use that to wake Africans up. We do that every Tuesday morning. Yes, Good Morning, Africa. And Reggae at its best at ONN every Friday night. We use it to wind down, to entertain our subscribers and the newcomers, those who come to check us out, our members. We really have fun every Friday, starting at 10 p.m. Central Standard Time. Hey, how are you? Wesinge John, how are you? Great to see you here. So that's what we do on Fridays, Reggae at its best. We really go wild. Sometimes we extend it into Saturday morning to tell you how fun it can be. So we invite you for the next edition, while we look forward to seeing you. And please, if you have not subscribed to our channel, please do so. And information about our channel is there. Take a minute to peruse, go through our work. We have done a lot of work since 2020 when we came on board. We have over 2,500 revolutionary messages, for the good of Nigeria, Africa, and the world. So it's such a blast, tonight being with you. I love you guys and look forward to seeing you again same time tomorrow. As long as this war lasts, we're going to do everything we can to continue to bring you updates as they arrive. Bye for now. Bye-bye. I love you guys. Hey, good morning, sir. Thank you for the show. Hey, I appreciate you, man. I look forward to seeing you. I hope you took your time to subscribe. We want to see you back again and then be part of what we do here. We are a people person. We don't discriminate against anybody based on race, skin color, or whatever, religion and all that. But we are not afraid of speaking the truth. We confront monsters that threaten humanity. Bye for now, and I love you guys. Take care.